All right, what is up, guys? Welcome to the Tony and Dakota podcast. Today, just me and Mr. Tony Newski.
What's up, guys?
So, yeah, we're going to be talking to you guys about what we've been up to. I'm sure you guys have seen some posts from both me and Tony about different things that we haven't really talked a whole lot about. So we figured we'd just share with you guys what's going on, have some discussion about what's going on in the future plans, and just, kind of everything that we're doing. That's kind of the whole plan. We didn't actually map this one out or have any questions that we usually have for guests, so you guys are going to see unfiltered, what do you call that? Like whenever it's just like happening.
Well, they might hear it too.
Yeah, well, you guys are going to hear it, not see it.
You guys might just be listening in the car. There are some people who like talking about the podcast and things like that. There were some people who were like, man, I used to listen to your podcast all the time. And then you guys quit doing it together. And I was like, yeah, I feel like we kind of like started to split. Like Dakota and I kind of started to split at some point. And I don't know, you don't remember necessarily bringing this up to me like 2 years ago or so, but I feel like it was 2.5 years ago when you first said, when we were back at the old office, you were like, hey, I don't feel like things are as fair anymore. Like you're not putting in the same amount of effort. And like being pretty self-aware, I was like, yeah, I felt that. And I knew that Dakota was putting in more hours than me, staying later, training the employees, hiring the employees. I mean, if it was up to me, we'd probably have like 3 employees by this point because I was never genuinely interested in like going to the office. To me, that felt more like responsibility. And I still struggle with that a lot to this day of just like, man, responsibility versus freedom and what does it mean? And I know like all the quotes are still important to like contemplate because I just saw one not too long ago that was like, heaven feels like going through hell, like in order to get to heaven. And it feels like heaven in order to stay in hell because, you know, you just continue to feel comfortable and continue to do the things that are easy and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like my new mission to go through it myself because I feel like Dakota was the leader and was doing the majority of the work of building the previous company. So now I get to start over and go after the flipping and wholesaling thing in a different way and see how I would shape a company if I were the boss kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. I'm already super stressed out. I was definitely stressed out even when Dakota was like, "Yeah, just quit your job and like go full time into this." I was like, "We're going under." I was like panicked immediately.
Yeah. I do remember that conversation too. That was the funniest part is I've had some people that actually just reached out after your last post and they were like, oh man, like partnerships and breaking up is really difficult. How are you doing and stuff? I'm like, dude, this has been a 2.5 year, 2 year thing. And I don't think a whole lot of people knew what was going on behind the scenes or anything. But yeah, that really started. I mean, people were telling me for a couple of years, like, oh man, like, how do you feel about this? And it didn't really bother me. And then a coach kept saying it and saying it and saying it. And I'm like, all right, like maybe I should look at this. And that was really the initiation of it. It was like, hey, this coach told me this. I wanted to see what you felt about it. And then it just kept like kind of, having the discussion since then. So it was not a easy decision and something that we just came to really abruptly. But anyway, to tell you guys what actually happened, as of January 1st, 2025, Tony is out of the flipping company, LTD Management. And so that is the flipping and wholesaling company that we do. We are still co-owners of every other
Entity
entity
like
that we
Loft
own.
102.
Rentals.
We still own all the rentals together. We still can call each other and ask each other for advice. And I'm sure if I've got some deal that I don't know if I can close on it or if it's going to be a problem or something, Dakota will look over it and be like, dude, this is what I would do if I were you.
Yeah.
Or like, Dakota might be like, well, we'll just take it down with you and we'll flip it or something like that.
Yep.
So still have each other as resources, still have each other as friends. And yeah, it's been interesting navigating that too, just because like Dakota and I have been friends for
16, so it'd be probably 15, 16 years.
Yeah, like half of our lives basically,
Over
which
half of
is nuts.
mine.
Yeah,
Yeah, over
Dakota's a little
half.
bit younger.
Just a little bit over half of my life. I thought
Mhm.
about that. That's crazy.
So, um, oh, I mean, something else too, we tried different things. It wasn't just like this was the only solution and it was the primary solution right off the bat.
Hmm.
Dakota came to me and was just like, hey, I need somebody who's going to be 50-50 in this with me. Do you want to take on roles like as the CFO? Do you want to take on something like the COO, like contribute in a different way? And when I think about those jobs, I'm just like, man, those feel more like managerial, feels more like a responsibility because then you're in charge of people and in charge of numbers and things like that. And I like the jobs where you can do things like marketing and sales and things like that that are more exciting. And Dakota likes those too. It's just he's more willing to sit and grind something out when it becomes difficult, whereas I kind of freeze and I'm just like, man, this is not what I wanted. Instead of like suffering through it, I tend to run away. So that's kind of like we tried a lot of different things. I spent like a few months coming to the office, and then I was just coming to the office later and coming to the office less often, and then I just got kind of depressed because I just didn't see the vision or I didn't see the way out. For me, it was more like I was working my way back in order to get through. I was like in and through instead of like above and you know onto something else. So we also looked at things like if we were both owners, then we would keep all of the monies up here, and then everybody would get paid for everything that we do. And then after we paid Dakota for everything that he did, then there was no money left because he had so many jobs in the company. So it was like if Dakota got paid as the CEO and the CFO and the COO and the sales manager and the tax accountant and like a handful of other things that he was doing, there would be no more salaries left to pay out distributions as owners, along with like our rapid growth and our overhead and constantly expanding and getting into new things. It just wasn't going to work out to try to pay ourselves as owners and keep this wholesaling and flipping company from going under, really, because it's always a risk. I mean, especially when you're in a business where you carry a bunch of inventory and your sales guys go to things like Andy Elliott and get super hyped up and they're like, I want to do 1,000 deals this year. And then you come back and then you're like, okay, so if we do 1,000 deals this year, that means I only need to come up with $20 million. Where can I
Yeah.
find $20 million of private money lender money? And how long is it going to take? It's going to take 8 months to flip all those. And so then you start carrying over inventory to the next year and you just keep like, we had a lot of basis in our company. That's one of the reasons why I was able to even get bought out is that we had a bunch of money in there, like over $1 million that we had never paid ourselves because we couldn't afford to because the company would have went under if we had paid ourselves that. So I think that's how some companies go under. They're just like, dude, I should be paying myself.
Yeah.
And they pay themselves too much and then they got to do everything on debt with none of their own money.
Yeah, it's always interesting too that people think that, oh, you're making $1 million, you got $1 million in the bank, and that's obviously not how we did it, which is also part of a disagreements on how the money was being spent and stuff, which we can get into soon. One thing I wanted to say about like just my thought process, just for anybody who's like curious, because yeah, I do think I suffer through stuff a little bit more. But I think about like I'm just willing to do whatever it takes in that moment. So for me, it's not necessarily like a job. Like I'm just like, all right, F it. What needs to be done right now in order to get us to where we want to go? And I don't really care what it is. And I feel like I mean, both of us really have this, and I think any good entrepreneur has it, is like the ability to be a jack of all trades, the ability to be able to figure anything out. So it's not even like I had this skill sets that I then use to, take the company to a certain level. It's no, I'm willing to learn whatever skill set needs to be there. And that reminds me of something that my counselor actually told me and Nicole that I think is just super helpful for me was you need to learn not like what we were trying to do is how can we have this conversation to where we figure out what does each person want and then we're all good, how much time do we spend with each other and all this stuff. That's not the conversation that really needs to be had. What we need to learn is how to have that conversation to where we can continue that, because a lot of times what we think is, oh, we're set, we figured it out, now we know. Well, guess what? When you throw other stuff in it, it always changes. And so you need to not learn the skill set, but how to learn the skill set. And so for us, it's not learning that how much time we each other need. We need to learn how to have those difficult conversations whenever those come up. And so I'm like, dang, that makes a lot more sense about learning how to do whatever it is that you need to do instead of like learning the one skill set. It's not about that. And then the other thing that I tell myself, which I know you know this, but I always, always, always tell myself it's almost done. I'm
Yeah.
almost done. I'm almost there. Like that's literally how my mind works. It's like I'm almost there.
Honestly, that's a lie, but it's such a good lie to believe. Like we're gonna do shit until the day we die. It's never over.
Yeah.
Like if I just get this one more, it's like you're playing. Well, I mean, I've been through this process, and I'm sure you have too. And this will be the funniest process to like. Cody can clip this because it's real funny. We've all played Pokemon. And you've been through the Elite Four and you got a level 64 fucking Charizard. But for whatever reason, you want a level 100 Charizard. And you got Pokemon Yellow, so you can't go do the Cinnabar Island trick where you meet missing number and copy all your rare candies. You just gotta grind that freaking game out and level up 3 levels, and then 2, and then 1, and then none for a while. You're just sitting there grinding it out because you're just like, man, I know once I get a level 100 Charizard, then I'll be happy.
Then I'll beat him easily. That is funny. Yeah, I remember going through the Pokemon and freaking always having to like find the random ones, like just walking through the grass until you find them. That was annoying, dude.
Yeah, that's why you need the Primus guide. My dad worked for Conway Freight and CCX, and occasionally they would, a damaged package would show up and it'd just be destroyed, but it still had good Pokemon cards and stuff in it. And what you're not supposed to do is bring it home, but somehow those cards ended up in my house. So, if the person said that they didn't want the package and then you called the manufacturer and the manufacturer said, well, we don't want it back either. If it's destroyed, we'll just write it off as a loss. Technically, you're supposed to take it and throw it in the trash, and nobody's supposed to get that package. But somehow those cards ended up back in my house, because my dad was like, oh, Tony loves Pokemon. We'll keep some of these cards. And that was super cool for me, just like, I don't know, growing up like that and getting blessed occasionally.
That's awesome.
Those Primos guys will help you through those Pokemon levels.
All right, so we'll go back to the ownership thing that we talked about too. I think that's important for people, just to differentiate between like owners, because that was something that me and you talked a lot about, was like our different thoughts about ownership. Your thought was like, okay, if I'm the owner, then that means like I'm gonna eventually not have a job, and to where like I'm not doing anything specifically where it's reoccurring. And I think that's a good place to be, and I think that's very true, that like you should not be stuck in that reoccurring, like where you have to be a part of the process.
Or just like, 5 hours a week kind of
Yeah.
thing. Like the way that Sharper Business Solutions and the way that Ryan Pineda talk about it, they make it seem like it's just so easy. But then again, it's so easy to also lose control and lose a bunch of money really fast because you're not involved in the day to day, and then your livelihood gets challenged and things like that. I mean, we've seen that with some of our mentors where they lose $1 million, got to sell off property, got to like figure out, then you got to be fast.
Yep.
Because like when you're in the day to day, you can be fast. You can make better decisions than your employees, obviously, because you're the one who founded the company in the first place. And so then when you escape the like
Day-to-day.
being the person who has to answer all of the questions and be the solid mental, like, hey, let's look at the data again, let's find out if we're actually making money. After you lose money for a year, then you go, oh my God, guys, this wasn't working. Like I tried to put all of you in charge. And so working that 5 hours a week can turn into a nightmare where you got to go back and work 80 because somebody quit and something happened and you're losing money constantly. But the way that Sharper Business Solutions, the way that Ryan Pineda had it set up was just the flow chart of all of the people who are responsible at the top. You're responsible for this, you're responsible for that, you're responsible for that. And so maybe you have a CFO who's responsible for all the monies, but then you have tax accountants under them, and then they have bookkeepers under them, and you got to catch the things that are going wrong. After all the monies are spent, at the very bottom is the owners. So what you're supposed to do, according to the Sharper model, is take all the monies that are coming in, subtract out all of the stuff that's going out, put some money in an oh crap fund in case things start turn south, and then split the profits 50-50 and take those as owners of the company. Owners get paid last, but theoretically, if you got to a point where your expenses got regular and consistent and that sort of thing, which is why I think they all lease their buildings, like they don't own their buildings. Once you got to the point where you knew what your overhead was going to be, then you could theoretically be like, oh yeah, we're going to pay ourselves this amount after we have this amount of expenses. This is how much we should make every month, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I also think that a lot of times people say the ideal, and then when you actually see the inside of their life, it's not what the ideal is. And so I hear people like Ryan Pineda, he says like, I don't work on the weekends. Like sometimes he does, and like I don't know, I haven't seen enough of Andy Elliott, but I've seen enough of these like big people who present a certain way on stage, and I've been behind on enough of them to know that it's not always exactly what they say. And like that's, I don't know why they do that, but it's actually kind of annoying in some ways because now we're trying to live this model, which honestly I think the model is really good. I think it's a good thing to strive for, but to say that it's not actually happening that way, I think is just sometimes unrealistic for what it is. But yeah, I'd say the last thing that I wanted to talk about is just like, yeah, the money difference I would say was like part of the reason of why we wanted to split up too, because I felt like a lot of times responsible or like I don't know what the right word is, but criticized, I would say, is the easiest way to do it for like how I was spending money when all I'm trying to do is reduce taxes. But I just didn't know how to do it while it flowed through us. And so I did it from the management company straight to rentals, which we're all 50% owner of. So it's just increasing your net worth over time, but not necessarily putting money in your pocket. While we were still increasing our salaries and stuff, we were still making a decent amount. It wasn't like we were getting next to nothing like the first 3 years of when we started. But yeah, I would say that that was like another big reasoning of why it made sense for us to split off, because it's like, well, at the end of the day, like I want to spend my money how I want to spend it. You want to spend your money how you want to spend it. And I'm just trying to do what's best for both of us. But we didn't really talk a whole lot about what that was going to look like other than whenever we're deciding on commissions and stuff like that. So I think that was a big thing that I would say that people should talk about in partnerships is how exactly is it going to flow. Work it out on a spreadsheet and make sure that your business is going to be sustainable for however you're going to do it. But I was trying to avoid taxes, which did not work for a couple years, that was a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, it's funny too when if you buy a $10 million asset and you divide that by 27 and a half years, you can see how much money you're going to save every year on taxes. And so theoretically, that makes a lot of sense. But then you look at that $10 million asset and you consider all of the stuff that could go wrong and all of the possibilities as far as like people not paying rent or getting evictions or like things happening with that $10 million asset that you didn't account for. And so it can become a liability or it can become a time vampire too, where you're just like, oh man, I did all this to save money on my taxes, and now it's actually costing me more time, more energy, producing less money than I thought. It's not as passive as I figured it would be, and I got to see it through. Otherwise, the whole thing could collapse in on itself and go under. If you take a bunch of depreciation up front too, like if you buy $1 million asset and take all the depreciation in the first few years, well, then you got to buy another $1 million asset next year and another $1 million asset the next year. And it's just like, it's like a debt snowball. It's like the opposite of what Dave Ramsey teaches, where you're just like, okay, if we buy one this year and we buy one the next year and we buy one the year after that, then we don't have to pay taxes. But all of those, all the deferred maintenance, all of the property management issues that like go unresolved, all the stuff that comes with owning things accumulates, and then eventually you're just like, oh man, I committed to being a lifelong landlord in order to not pay taxes.
Yeah, I think there's still different ways to set it up. I would say our rentals are pretty passive now. What I'd recommend people do though is just get the bigger buildings. I mean, these buildings like Inwood, like Coliseum and stuff, those were the ones that really helped our, like all the single family did not actually do that much because the way that you can write off the accelerated depreciation or the depreciation in general is usually based on the purchase price and the money that you put into them. And for us, we don't pay the most money for properties. And so like if you're buying, and in the Midwest, properties just aren't that expensive. So we're buying them for $50,000 to $75,000. That does not make that much of a difference. And we
Yeah.
thought that we accumulated enough that it would, but we're talking like a couple $100 each. And so it's just not, it was not what we thought it was whenever the whole
As
plan
far
was
as
up.
tax savings, you
Yeah,
mean?
tax savings, yeah.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is like Chris Crone will talk about this with single family homes. He said he does his entire portfolio like that. He's like, I just want single family homes. He's missing out on that commercial real estate depreciation where you
Hmm.
can do bigger numbers up front. He just feels like single family homes are a better asset class because they're always going to be desirable. Whereas the commercial market right now, a lot of people are at 7% interest rates that were not planning on being at 7% interest rates because they bought it at a 3% interest rate, are now going to
Hmm.
refinance, going, dude, if we refinance, we're going under.
Yeah.
I can't even afford to refinance. So a lot of people are talking about it. I think I looked at the numbers. I thought it was going to be this really dramatic thing. I think we're only at like 0.5% of people going into foreclosure that are in commercial.
You saw that thing from Patrick Bet David that
Yeah,
everybody's
some
posting?
yeah, like the
Hmm.
chart, but I looked at it and I was like 0.5%. I was like, that doesn't feel like a lot. I guess once it gets up to 1 or 2 or 3, like 3% of the commercial buildings in the United States is actually a lot of buildings.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. I saw
So,
Walgreens right down the street just moved right here. I don't know if you saw that. So I don't know. I see some stuff happening. I would guess that stuff's happening in the commercial industry, honestly.
the
That's what
tough
it feels like, even in our area.
the tough thing is figuring out what to do with them,
Yeah.
really, because you get a big concrete jungle of a building
Hmm.
and you're going to have to probably put however much money you buy it for, you're probably going to have to put that amount of money into it to turn it into whatever you want to turn it into. But like converting something like that into multifamily housing or something like that could solve some issues in the short term. It's just hard to say how it's going to play out over the long term too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the disadvantage too. Like Dakota was saying, to buy the big buildings. The big buildings that we own, we're still waiting to see if they're going to actually pay for themselves.
Well, they do because the difference between what we're doing and what other people would probably do is it's our businesses that actually rent out the properties from themselves. So that always makes sense because now we know that we're going to pay our own rent and otherwise we have to like run up that business. And so I feel like that's a little bit different of a strategy because we know it's going to pay itself down because we do
Loft
it
102 though, we still like projected it's going to take a few years. Like it's going to be
like for the business or
yeah,
for.
yeah, for like the business
Well,
to
now that we have the liquor, honestly, I think we will be like the rent is, well, I don't know if we want to talk too much about it, but the rent should be covering the everything to where it's like a net. And so like and we'll probably set it up more like a triple net. And so at the end of the day, like I think it'll work out now.
well, it did take us longer too. So
Oh yeah,
like
two
there's
years.
it took us like a year and a half, 2 years to do the rehab when we thought it was going to take 8 months or
Yeah.
something. Dakota's being naively optimistic. I thought it was going to take us at least a year.
I don't know, dude. I think it could have got if we would have had the same guy that we had finish it out start, I bet it could have took well, it probably would have took a year. But yeah.
So yeah, it's just like a lesson in making sure that you have the capacity to actually be able to do something like that too. You might not go, "Oh, I'm going to start a venue as my first business," because if we had started a venue as our first business,
No, we'd
we
have
would
been
have been
under.
so upside down and screwed. We would have been like trying to find private money lenders like crazy, borrowing hard money probably, just doing everything we could even to get the thing finished. Probably
Yeah.
working on it ourselves. Probably like
I don't know. That would have been if that was our first one. I don't think we would have took that on as a first one though. It's just too crazy of numbers. But yeah, I mean that I think we put in like probably $500,000-600,000 of cash. Like I mean that's all. We spent a lot of money on that property. it was kind of more like a dream project. The whole reason that we got that one was so we could go into like more coaching and mentoring, and that's not going as well right now. And like I don't know, just like I haven't felt the same passion as I felt back then to go and do that stuff. Like I still want to teach and help, but I don't know if I want to do it at like a scaling capacity. I'm still trying to figure that stuff out on what I want to do next.
I think it's just uncharacteristic of you and of me to go into the type of coaching that keeps getting promoted because it feels inauthentic almost.
Hmm.
Like I feel like there's a certain degree of like uh
Hype.
well, yeah, and like getting people to expect the greatest possible outcome
Hmm.
without any of the downside.
Yeah.
Like all these coaches are like, you want to make $10 million? You can absolutely do it. I'm going to show you how right now.
Yeah.
And then you're like, there is also a chance that it's a bumpy road for the next 6 years, and
Yeah, it's gonna take a little time.
you need to develop your skills more. Not every, like, you can't start off in fifth grade. Like, some people are in kindergarten and don't know, if I could do this, then would you do it, sales close? Like, they don't even
Yeah.
know the elementary level stuff.
Yeah, I used to paint stuff as really easy, and then now that I'm starting to see the amount of effort and stuff that other people have to put in, then I don't see it as easy. Like I don't know, it's kind of hard for my brain to concept like accept the concept of hard for myself because I'm like, okay, like everything feels as though it's hard in the moment, but then afterwards I'm like, oh, it didn't feel that hard. But then when I see other people going through the same thing to learn the same exact thing, I'm like, oh dang, maybe this is harder than I thought. It was just like my mindset around it. And so for to paint a photo of like, oh, this is gonna be so easy, I'm like, I don't know if it's easy. It's simple. I'll say that. It's very simple. Like, I think people overcomplicate things, like freaking way overcomplicate. I don't think it's always as complicated as people think. It's actually breaking it down to the rudimentary principles is actually more difficult for people. I feel like we as humans just want to overcomplicate everything. They're like, how complex can I make this and how much more difficult? Let's run these KPIs and do this and that. It's like, no, let's just focus on did we make money or not? Like that's simple. But anyway, I would say that it's not easy, but it is very, very simple, especially the concept of wholesaling. It's a very simple concept, but it's not easy to actually have it play out exactly how it's supposed to. There's some things that have to actually work for it to work as simply as it does. But it is so simple to actually do if you get the property at the right price, if you get it under contract, if you got a good contract, there's certain contingencies that if all those line up, it's so simple.
I mean, when people believe the hype too, they end up being like really easy people to coach.
Mm.
Like, you think of somebody like Andrew, like, hey man, I want to work with you guys. I don't know, whatever I need to do, like I want to work with you guys.
Yeah.
And you just told him like you're gonna make a lot of money, and he's like, I'm gonna make a lot of money.
Hmm.
And because he believed it, and because he believed in you, and because he believed in me, and then it just made it that much easier.
Well, that was easier because I also knew was possible. And so that's the other thing too, is if you know what's possible for them, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be guaranteed. And so you can say, like, I could say with certainty that, like, man, if you get into wholesaling, you can make a lot of money. Now, to say if you will, I can't say that you will. I can say if you follow these steps exactly, you will. But, like, at the same time, like, yeah, to say it's easy and stuff, I don't think Andrew had that expectation that it was going to be easy either. We weren't like, oh, yeah, you're going to easily make six figures. Because I would not say that even making six figures was easy, but figured it out.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be easier than it was, which was kind of
Who, he
funny.
did?
Yeah, yeah, just like the contracts and like talking to people and that sort of thing. He's like, oh yeah, I just get under contract and like then it's done.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's only, five more steps than whatever you're thinking.
Yeah. And it's almost good to be, that's the funniest part too, is that it is sometimes good to be naively optimistic because that's what gets you into the scenario anyway, as long as you're the kind of person that'll finish it out. Because if you just finish it out, it's like, dude, I was naively optimistic about writing my book. I literally thought that that was going to take 6 months. And it's been 2.5 years later, and then I am really close to having it out, May 11th. May 11th, it'll be all the way out. But yeah, sometimes that optimism can be good, but it can also be bad. And Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about, like the gurus who are saying it, because like, do they know that they're saying it just in order to promote, or do they say it because they know it's possible? And that's a question that I would think you'd have to answer by yourself. But I don't know if that's the necessarily just the reason of why I don't know if I want to get into it anymore. Just honestly, it feels weird for me even being on camera and like thinking about what I say now is not necessarily what I believe in the future, and like switching and changing and molding and like I don't know, it just feels weird, like people knowing a lot about my life and stuff. And it actually gets interesting where I'm like, it am I doing this because this is what I want to do, or am I doing this because this is what I think would other people would want to see me do? And like, even though I always think that I'm very independent and do things, I'm like, man, I still feel influenced by what I'm doing now based on that. And so now it's still thinking about it. And so my mind goes in this really weird circle to where it almost feels weird. I'm like, dang, and this is, we're on a pretty small scale. Like, it's really just local people that know us. It's not like, oh, we're national or anything. So I'm like, man, if this feeling gets worse as time goes on, I don't know if I want more of that. And so I don't know. I've just been thinking a lot about all that stuff.
Yeah, being responsible for, and not necessarily being responsible, because every person gets to make their own decisions and they're responsible and capable and contributing to their situation. But like, if you're influencing someone else and then they make decisions based on the information that you gave them, that's the kind of stuff that people try to sue you for later, because they're like, hey, I took your advice and it didn't go well. And so
Yeah.
then it's almost like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of these gurus and stuff are like, I don't give a shit. I'll say anything that I want. And they just are like, doing and saying whatever they want without really caring about like who it affects and what their influence actually ends up being. And then like being the like caring and empathetic person, just being like, man, I really want to make sure that everything that I do ends up resulting in someone having a better life or more of what they want. Or like, I want to know what people want before I give them the advice. That way I can like take every individual and make my response custom to them, because just the sound bites on Instagram and YouTube are helpful for some people.
Yeah.
I see a lot of them on people's Facebook stories and whatnot.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's not even just like, now I think about what do they want, and then what I used to do is ask what people wanted, and then I'd shape my whatever I wanted into what they wanted, instead of thinking about, okay, what do I want for my life before first? That way I'm not influenced by everybody else. What do I actually want for my life? And then I can see if what people want can help contribute to that, or if I can help contribute to what they want. But what I did a lot of times was, what do you want? Okay, cool, I can make that happen, and like that sounds fun. And I kind of like just went and said yes to certain things, whereas now I want to like be very intentional with what I'm doing. But that's actually a lot more difficult. And that's something else that I learned in counseling too with Nicole, is like saying how you feel and saying like, hey, well, that made me feel this way. I felt like this. That's actually very difficult for me because I never thought about how I felt. I just want to know how they feel. I'm just like, oh, how do you feel? And then I can tell you how I feel. Instead of saying, hey, that made me feel this way. Now I have to look internally and see what am I actually experiencing, which is a very difficult thing for most people. But that's something else that that I'm just kind of working through, and like being very intentional with what I want to do with my life. And then the last thing that I'll say about like the whole coaching thing is like, I don't know, I start to question. I'm like, I look at everybody's trajectory. They're like, okay, we get into wholesaling, and then we teach it, and then we do seminars, and like that's everybody's line. Like, why am I wanting to do that? Am I doing that because that's what everybody does and that's a progression, or like why am I actually wanting this? Is that what I actually want, or is that just what I think that'd be like the social thing to do? And like, it just seems weird to me that that's what everybody else does, and then I just kind of follow it. And so I don't know. I'm starting to question like, what is that actually what I want to do?
Yeah, I think back in college, I was like, I want to be a public speaker. And then people are like, well, nobody's going to listen to you unless you've accomplished something. And be like, I want to accomplish something so that one day I can be a public speaker. And then everybody's like, why don't you just go be a public speaker now? I'm like, I haven't accomplished enough yet to be a public speaker. Like, I don't know if I would take my advice. I think I need to do more shit first.
I think that always happens too. Like I felt that way even
Do you
when I
keep
was in
chasing
car
it?
sales.
Keep
Yeah,
chasing
you
it?
just keep going, I need more, I need more, I need more. And like, even me now, I'm like, when I hear what other people give as advice, I'm like, oh, dang, like, I don't know if that is good advice. And what have they accomplished? And then the way that it looks really good. Like when they spell it all out. And then when I actually ask them and I talk to them one-on-one, I find out that I've accomplished like 10 times more on, like, not saying that as an egotistical way, I'm talking like literally mathematically. I've accomplished more than what they have, but they made it sound different than what I did. And so, yeah, I feel like I run into that trap all the time. Even when I was in car sales, like, man, I can't teach about sales yet. I need to make this amount. Then when I become a millionaire, that's when I'll teach it. Now, like, I still feel like that. And then when I actually hear people, I'm like, dang, I actually do know more information than what I'm giving out there, and even necessarily than what these people are not. Some people could see that as like egotistical. I see it as encouraging, and it's a phrase that I remember a lot of other people talk about is there's somebody out there with less skills than you who are doing more. And that is a truth that I remind myself whenever I'm feeling like that. There's public speakers out there who know a whole lot less than you do. There's public speakers out there who you probably know and like everybody knows that are less qualified than you by a lot. And so, yeah, I just think about stuff like that whenever I'm like getting in my own head of like, oh man, I need to do this, I need to accomplish. Like, there's somebody else that is doing way more who is less experienced and who knows less. So that's kind of my thought process whenever I'm thinking like it. But yeah, I think you'd be a good. I think you should be a comedian mostly, but I don't know if we want to tell that story. That's part of, we'll just tell you guys a brief synopsis of it. That is part of the reason why we also want to do this, because Tony wants freedom to tell jokes the way he wants to tell them, but then also like not associate it with everybody if we are.
Brand.
Yeah, with a brand if like, Tony says some stuff that's slightly well, that's relative. Slightly offensive.
Yeah, that's like the. Oh, well, yeah, that is the funny thing too, is when I just made a post, but I posted a picture, I didn't say anything. So I was like, oh, so it's edgy. It was very, very edgy. It was like edgy to the point where you'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe he posted that. And so then the LTD guys were blowing me up in the chat being like, bro, what
Yeah.
are you doing? We're trying to like bring the brand back and look good to the general public, and you just posted that. Holy crap.
Well, it's also like not just looking good. Like, I don't like to just look good to look good, but at the same time, we've gotten some negative feedback with people who are saying things about like our ethics and all this other stuff. And so then when something like that comes out, it's like, okay, we felt like the other stuff wasn't true, and I feel like
Yeah,
we've
now I'm
proved that.
disproving their
Yeah,
point.
now you actually go and post something that like you legitimately did say, and it is
Pretty bad.
offensive. Yeah, and so like now they actually legitimately have something, whereas before we did not feel like they did. Now they do, and so we're like, oh shoot. But I understand. I was actually this is something I did share with the LTD crew. Actually, I was like, man, I was extremely proud of how everybody handled the situation though, because I was going to say the same things, and I'm like, it just feels too weird to say it in front of everybody, so I was going to have it more one-on-one and explain that. Then Derek said it, which is like, for me, I like accountability from the group. I actually really like everybody holding each other accountable. And then I felt like it took a lot of humility from you to be like, yeah, I understand where you guys are coming from, and apologizing, and then also still wanting the freedom, and then finding a way, okay, we want you to be free to do that too, but then also we do realize it negatively affect us. So I don't know. I was just like, dang, I just feel like that was a interaction that not very many people would have, which can bring us actually back to the main point of this discussion, which was like, that is something that reminds me of something that Jerry, what was his last name?
Oh yeah, Jerry Stark.
Yeah, Jerry Starks. So he said that in the very beginning. He's like, man, you guys are in partnership. That's not going to end well.
It's like, you guys are gonna make a lot of money, so you better figure out now, like,
Yeah. Yep. And
if you're gonna be
that's
together, if you guys are gonna be friends, like what it's gonna look like when you guys blow up, because you're gonna make a lot of money.
Yep. And yeah, I think that that's something that a lot of people said was like, partnerships don't end well. And this partnership, I feel like, has ended pretty well on the one company. I mean, like 2.5 years, I feel like we both are getting what we wanted, and like it doesn't just blow everything else up or like have resentment where we're mad at each other for it. It's like, it wasn't like we're just like, oh, yep, you're out and like doing some crazy stuff. It's like, okay, let's talk about this, talk about what we want, and like very open to trying different things and figuring out the best way to make it happen.
Yeah, even like our good friends and mentors and things like that, I've heard stories of them being like, well, I froze the bank account, so like good luck getting any money out. Like you'll never see a dime, and then putting each other through lawsuits and things. And it looks like, I don't know, saw online, it looks like maybe Gary Brecka and Grant Cardone are back together or
Oh,
something.
really?
I don't know. I just saw them take a selfie together, and Grant like really wanted the selfie, like, hey man,
I thought that was an old one or
maybe
something.
it was an old one.
I don't know.
Somebody, there were people commenting on there just being like, are you guys back together? Is this just a publicity stunt? What's going on? But it's just funny seeing like the drama and like not really wanting that for my own life, and Dakota not really wanting that either. I mean, it's tough to be strong and to not like accuse people of things or to get resentful and that sort of thing, or just have like an open conversation about when you are feeling resentment and not have the other person like use it against you. That's pretty tough. Like feeling like you're getting manipulated or feeling like somebody's using the information that you give them against you.
Yeah. I've honestly never felt that way, and I never questioned your intentions and was like, oh man, like Tony's just doing this to screw me over or anything like that, or I don't know if you felt that way or like with me or like doubting about where money's at or anything like that, but it's like I feel like there's still a certain amount of respect and trust that the other person still wants the best for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
Yeah.
something that, like I've always felt. I'm always like, dude, it's not like I'm like, oh yeah, like F Tony, like he doesn't want to do it, then F him, and like I want him to suffer. It's like, okay, here's the situation. I'm not happy, so let's figure out a way to still make this work for both of us to where it does make sense. And that's always my goal. But yeah, I think that happens a lot in partnerships, happens a lot in divorces and stuff. Like the people just get mad at the other people, which, I mean, it happens. And I felt the anger starting. And so that was when I had the conversation because I'm like, okay, it's kind of funny, actually. I think I did tell you this, but the whole thought of all of it was, okay, if Tony's not going to do as much, let me just hire everybody to do my jobs. I'll be all the way out of the business. And then now we're both good and we can go start other businesses by ourselves if we want to or do whatever we want. That did not work. So if you guys are thinking about doing that, I promise you it won't work. You just need to have the conversation. Because what I realized over 2 years is the resentment was building and I'm doing more work. So I'm doing more work, which obviously then I'm starting to point to the other person. But really what it all comes back to is my inability or my choice to not have the conversation at that time. I was avoiding a hard conversation, which was my choice. It wasn't even your choice because it's like you weren't feeling that way. And so because I didn't want to have a hard conversation, I made a lot of choices that led me even deeper in the hole, which I think a lot of people can relate to. And by the time that I had the conversation, my realization at that point was this is not going to get better. This is going to get worse as it gets bigger. The decisions are going to be more. The weight of everything was actually increasing significantly. And if it keeps going like this, I feel like I would get so mad that I couldn't be friends anymore. And I'm like, that would be worse to me than just having a hard conversation and figuring out how to do all this stuff. So that was kind of the whole lineup of how it all kind of played out.
Yeah, and we tried a lot of different things too. So for a few months, we were trying to figure out what we wanted. For a few months, I was trying to be some
Underwriter.
creative or some sort of different job or
Oh
like
yeah.
fulfill some sort of role in the company, like chief growth officer or something like that. And then I just ended up being like pretty unhappy and like kind of depressed and wanting to like focus on things that give me energy. And so just stopped coming into the office as much. And then we had another hard conversation. And so like it wasn't all just
Yeah,
getting
figured
getting
out.
cut off. It was like trying
Yeah, and
trying a lot of different things.
it wasn't just figured out either. I mean, like, yeah, 2.5 years to make decisions. I mean, there's a lot of time, which again, most people, I think that's where most people do get mad at each other and stuff. And instead, it's just like, dude, it is what it is. Like, we're both doing the best we can to figure out what we both want and stuff. And so, yeah, I think that there was a lot of figuring it out that took a long time. And like, even to figure it out all the way up into the first was so complicated because that's a whole nother topic, but it's difficult when the numbers aren't exactly there, and then you've taken it from here, then now you're going into other companies that you co-own, but we're going to remain owners of this one, but then this is the only one that's really important. So it's like, man, like important for the conversation. So it's like, dang, it was a lot of work with no numbers, and I thought the numbers were going to keep coming. You know, I was optimistic about, oh, we're going to get the numbers, we're going to get the numbers, we're going to get the numbers, and then it'll be solved. And so some of it I felt like was prolonged unnecessarily just because the numbers weren't there.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is if the company, the wholesaling company is paying for the rentals, then now we don't know how much the rental company owes this company. And then if I buy Tony out based on this, and then actually this company's still paying it, well, that's not fair to Tony now because now he's losing it. And so we're just trying to make it the most fair way possible for all of us, which was, it's easier when you know all your numbers, which everybody says they know their numbers. I don't know about that, but
We're on our 5th tax accountant or 6th.
I don't even know.
We've had more tax accountants than, almost as many tax accountants as the number of years we've been in business.
Yeah. And that's very difficult to switch over and have. And we still need a bookkeeper or somebody. That's something that I'm actually thinking about doing. Getting a VA bookkeeper. Because, man, it's always an issue. Always, always, always.
I think Chandler was talking about that. You might DM him, see
Yeah.
what his process is for hiring one, because he sounded like he had process at least.
Yeah, I was looking into AI and I don't trust it.
Yeah.
I don't trust AI.
Yeah, AI was trying to figure out what was on those documents, and it came back all wrong.
Really?
Yeah, it cleaned them up and made it look real fresh and perfect, but the numbers were wrong.
Wow. That's interesting.
He just started guessing.
That's what I feel like AI does. It's like, okay, based on the information I have, I'm going to make this up. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea.
I had it create an advertisement. It was like, need to sell a house, but like the U and the S were so close together that you couldn't, that it wasn't.
Make the word.
Yeah. And I was like, can you separate and then it like separated them, but I was just like, that still doesn't look right. It doesn't look like a letter's supposed to look. So AI is just funny.
Yeah. My book has AI in the front, and you can tell only if you look really close at it. I don't know. Did you see it?
Mm-mm.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, you can tell, like, if you look at the chips, they're a little bit warped, and, like, you can kind of tell a little bit that it's, but it could just be an infinite black hole that it's going into, and that's why it's distorting it. So, yeah, it depends on how you think about it, but, yeah. You got anything else?
I don't think so.
That was about an hour, close enough. Yeah, so that's about it, guys. Tony has a new company, Helpful Home Offers. Is that right?
Helpful Home Offer.
Offer. Only one. You get one offer.
I'll make you one offer.
It's make or break. You either take it or you don't.
I thought I had an S to it, but I was in between. I guess I should have added an S.
I don't know how to say. So if you guys are interested in learning, wholesaling, anything like that, reach out to Tony. He's looking for an acquisitions guy. And I don't know if you want to talk about anything on that.
Yeah, I think in order to get excited about it again, I really just need a partner, like a friend or an acquisitions guy, somebody that's like, when they have an old dog that's like kind of just laying there, like kind of depressed, and then like the young dog comes, it's like, hey, do you want to go? Do you want to play? And then the old dog's like, I guess I can get up and start. And then the old dog starts playing again. I'm that old ass fucking dog. I'm an old dog. I'm kind of like, oh my God, do I really want to do this whole thing again? So if somebody's like young and chipper and ready to go and excited and doesn't know what the hell they're doing, I'll be super excited to like teach them and collaborate with them and work with them and get some deals and that sort of thing. And then I think once I get a few deals under contract, like the sky's the limit. I was going to target Indiana, Ohio, and Tennessee. Kentucky's a little bit weird on their laws because you need to have a real estate license in Tennessee or in Kentucky apparently in order to wholesale. He said, if you're going to wholesale, you need a license. But I don't know what they do if you double close.
I think I know some people who wholesale down there too.
Probably nothing if you double close, right?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, unless what a lot of times what I've heard they're doing now is they're making a rule for how long you can sell after you buy.
They're making something about the marketing specifically. That's the problem in Kentucky that I saw. Is that if I was marketing the property as if I was doing a pre-sale or I suggested it at all, that there's nothing that can hold that contract up that
That's
the
so
sellers
dumb.
can just get out.
So even if it's on the market with an MLS?
Oh, I think innovation would be different because you'd have a power of attorney
No,
against
no,
the
I meant
person.
like let's just say that these people are wholesaling on market properties. It's always interesting to me that I feel like the state lets you do stuff if there's an agent involved.
Yeah.
I'm like, in my opinion, it's bullcrap. But
Yeah. Yeah, it seems, I mean, that's the interesting thing too. Like, if you were going to do a state that required a license, what would happen if you became really good friends with a guy and you're just like, hey, you help me wholesale this property, I'll give you a certain percentage for helping me wholesale this property. You don't have to do anything.
yeah,
Then you're just using the person's license or the person's name and whatnot to put properties under contract. I don't know. I don't know what the workaround is. I'd imagine if you, oh yeah, I already thought of a workaround. Just putting the property under contract with a land contract.
hmm,
So it's like now I have ownership interest.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I don't know either. I don't know much about Kentucky. I do know guys that wholesale down there, so I guess we could ask them. But yeah, guys, if you guys are interested in that, let us know. If you guys know a bookkeeper or anybody who wants to be a controller, let us know that. That is something that we would love to have. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. That was something that we just wanted to talk to you guys about. We've not actually made a public statement about it. I think that some people kind of had the idea, obviously, but I don't know. I get a lot of people that DM me back and forth whenever like anything's posted about Hopeful Home Offer.
There'll probably still be some fallout for like the next couple of years. Somebody will be like, "Wait, you guys aren't together anymore?" Like
Yeah,
2 years from now, like,
probably.
bro, that's old news.
Yeah, probably. But hopefully that helps you guys know where we're at, know that we're not mad at each other, starting other stuff or any other rumors, or like, yeah, Tony didn't leave because of our bad ethics. That was another rumor that went around.
Yeah, it kind of hit like right when I was about ready to leave was like this campaign to like ruin LTD, and so then some people were hypothesizing that like, oh, is there too much drama going on? You had to get out, and I was like, no, that wasn't it. We've been thinking about this for a long time, so
Yeah, so there's some funny rumors going out there, but hopefully this clears up all of those. If you guys have any questions, reach out to Tony. He'd be happy to answer them. I do not want to answer any. So I'm just kidding.
no more wholesaling questions.
No, I meant questions about like the split up.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. No. All right. See you guys. Peace.